Hi, in this video, I would like to point out the nefarious and grossly biased reporting about Israel after the recent Operation Breaking Dawn in Gaza against the Islamic Jihad terrorists. In a recent talk with Al Jazeera news station, an anti-Semitic political analyst, Shawar Bashara, presented at least 20 lies about Israel within the 4 minutes of his entire talk. In other words, every sentence he uttered was a lie. So far, it was the most extreme anti-Semitic talk about Operation Breaking Dawn. Bashara was correct when he said that the people of Gaza are victims of aggression, terrorism, and sadism, but he was not correct when he blamed Israel for it. The people of Gaza are indeed victims, but of their own leadership that uses them as pawns in the never-ending jihad war on Israel as a Jewish state. Contrary to his lies, the continuous bombardment that he attributed to Israel did not apply to Israel, but to the Islamic Jihad that bombarded Israel from Gaza. Terrorist groups have been bombarding Israel from Gaza for decades, not aiming at specific targets, but at Israeli citizens willy-nilly. In case you don't know, 2 years after Gaza gained its independence, it became a military base for terrorist organizations. They used schools, hospitals, and residential yards for firing rockets at Israel, which is a war crime, which doesn't seem to bother neither Bashara nor Al Jazeera. One of the most pervasive lies that was surprising to hear from a political analyst was that Israel occupies Gaza, when the truth is that Gaza is an independent state. Bashara presented the Gaza total population as a population of helpless refugees under Israeli occupation. But one doesn't have to be an expert in anything in order to understand that an entire population cannot be refugees in their own independent country, to include their descendants, generation after generation. Contrary to Bashara's lies about Israeli brutality toward poor refugees who are not refugees to begin with, and to calling jihad terrorists freedom fighters when they govern themselves, Israel does as much as possible to minimize harm to civilians. Israel notifies Gaza civilians about an upcoming attack and the location of safe shelters, which no other country in the world has ever done. Contrary to Bashara's lies, in a YouTube video not shown here, it is possible to see Gaza terrorists prevent their own civilians from entering a safe shelter, calling them cowards and beating them up with sticks. In case you don't know, Gaza terrorists committed double war crime by using their own population as human shields, which is one crime, and by attacking another civilian population, which is the second crime. Gaza terrorist warlords are not legitimate leaders, according to Bashara, but war criminals. Bashara then compared Israel's retaliation against terrorism from Gaza to Russia invading Ukraine, but I must admit that the comparison escaped me. Israel is not invading Gaza and has no issues with Gaza's existence as an independent state. In the photo on the bottom of the slide here, you can see one of the numerous bombings of a target that was aborted by Israel because a bicyclist was passing by. The life of this unremarkable human being took priority in Israel over bombarding the target. Next to it, you can see a failed rocket launch in Gaza that fell in a Gaza residential neighborhood. For your information, failed rocket launches from Gaza killed all reported casualties, to include children that were falsely attributed to Israel. Over 200 rocket launches from Gaza fell back into Gaza civilian neighborhoods. We might never know specifically which launch failure killed which adult or child, but the evidence clearly disagrees, with Bashara attributing it to Israeli brutality. The Israeli main goals of this operation were simple, reasonable, and transparent. They were to eliminate the terrorist pods of the Islamic Jihad, to gain temporary relief from terrorism from Gaza, to sabotage their announced plan to attack Israel, and to assert Israel's right to protect its citizens, not all of which are Jews. Once the mission was completed, Israel immediately resumed the supply of substructure products to Gaza, and Gaza citizens once again crossed over to Israel for the daily work and medical care, which Egypt doesn't provide from its border with Gaza. My heart goes for the citizens of Gaza who have been held hostage by their own terrorist groups and government since 2007. If you didn't know, now you know. Bye.